All right, we are back with another week of UND football after a bye week and a loss against Boise State, and this time the matchup doesn't decrease in quality by any means. It'll be number one South Dakota State, and UND will be in Brookings. And Tom, just getting right back into things. How maybe not important, but just how tough of a matchup is this going to be right off the bat after a bye week?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like an FBS game, to be honest. I think North Dakota, if all things go well, if they can do a bunch of the little things right, they can have a shot to win. But that's kind of that was the same message going into Boise State, really. So I think that's kind of the level of opponent you kind of have to get your mindset right with is that UND could lose 28-14. And depending on how things go, you might feel okay about where you sit, how things went. That tells you where South Dakota State's at. They're the defending national champs. They returned 10 starters on offense. The one guy they lost is with the Green Bay Packers, and his backup will be all conference, Zach Hines. So as good offensively as UND will see. Defensively, there's a little turnover on defensive line, but all things considered, they're giving up 10 points a game, albeit to scrub opponents, but one Montana State. So there is at least one kind of benchmark that you can say they have been tested. Not that this team maybe really needed to be tested, but they're solid. With that said, I think I've seen North Dakota outperform expectations against South Dakota State over the years at certain moments. What was it, 2021 fall? North Dakota ended the season at South Dakota State. South Dakota State was expected to be and was, one of the better teams in the FCS. North Dakota was struggling that season. I believe finished under 500 one of the few times in Bubba Schweiger's tenure here. So I've seen North Dakota outperform the expectations against South Dakota State, but it's going to be a unique beast. I feel like I've seen North Dakota play at Dana Dykhouse Stadium in front of 8,000. In front of 9,000 because they're playing in November. They're playing in October. It's going to be 85 degrees in Brookings on Saturday, and they've already sold it out. And that's a 19,000 seat stadium that I haven't seen anywhere near full. So I think it's going to be a good test for UND to see where they're at. If we learn some things against Boise State, that the road isn't super comfortable right now. So there's a lot to iron out.
Yeah, and you mentioned, at least for the South Dakota State side of things, roughly, the same team going back to the 2021 game in Grand Forks. And a lot of that had to do, from the UND side, had to do with their rushing attack and being able to outrush South Dakota State. So how much really does that part of the thing, change in terms of having Luke Skokna being the number one back for UND?
Yeah, I think what's going to be pretty important will be to watch warmups to see will Isaiah Smith play. Luke Skokna has really done a nice job. He's a veteran. He's reliable. He has some home run hitting ability, but I'll say that Isaiah Smith is a all conference type back. He probably won't put up the numbers specifically rushing the football that would elicit a all conference nod, but he has that level of explosiveness. And I thought North Dakota really missed him out at Boise State. I think they just didn't have another explosive body type back there. And if Isaiah Smith can go, that will really help out. Like you mentioned, the 2021 game in which Otis Weah really had his defining game in Grand Forks. I thought, I think he had 2 rushing touchdowns. He had the 140-yarder with 7 minutes left to win it. He had the one where he fumbled at like the 2, but caught back up to it at the goal line. That was a big game for North Dakota. It also happened in the Atlanta Center. Can you replicate that on the road? It was a 24-21 game that fall. So these two teams have a history of playing really competitive games. I thought last year's game in Grand Forks sure could have been a lot different. It was 21-7, got the ball back. Looked like UND was poised. They hadn't really been stopped offensively. It looked like they were ready to go down. And heck, are they going to make this thing 28-7? That thought's running through my mind. And then they didn't block well on a bubble screen, and South Dakota State jumped it, brought it back, and it's 21-14 at halftime. You're still up, but I think the feeling at half was kind of like that was our chance. We let it go. And that was a huge turning point. So be very interesting to see the turnover battle here in this one. Tommy Schuster had some troubles with it at Boise State. Snapping will be one of the things that everybody's going to have to watch. I feel like I always jot things down pregame, and one of the things it will be a storyline, whether UND's snapping issues stop or whether they continue. But either way, it's going to be something to watch because that was had a deep impact on that game at Boise State. So, certainly can't have that against the Jacks and expect to win.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and then special team side of things too. With those two together, which do you feel like maybe lends itself as more punishable, maybe against a team like South Dakota State?
Well, I've told people there's a sneaky benefit to North Dakota's kicking game struggling these last couple of years, is that perhaps a conservative-minded coach like Bubba Schweiger is more apt to be aggressive on fourth down or on the verge of the red zone. Anyways, that's my hot take about UND's kick game. But I think that there's a chance that Brady Stevens plays. He missed that extra point against Boise State, which was a big play because it ended up forcing North Dakota. Well, forcing might not be the right word. North Dakota then decided to chase the points a little bit, go for two, really struggled with 2-point conversion attempts. North Dakota's kicking game has not been good enough. And does CJ Elricks get a shot? Kid out of Kansas, second-year player, really powerful leg. But the coaching staff knows what they're doing. There's a reason he's a backup. I don't know if that's consistency or what. But we might find out in live real time on Saturday what he can offer. He's done some kicking off, but I would not be surprised if we see him on field goals and even extra points. So punting too, kind of a complete mystery. Luke Silvernail throttled a 50-yarder against Boise, and I thought, hey, this kid's going to like playing at elevation. And then, the next couple, looked like it maybe went off the side of his foot for 35 yards at elevation. So, you got to hope if you're North Dakota that gets ironed out. The Silvernail kid is a freshman or a second-year player. And so, maybe there's just some first road game of your career hiccups that come with that. You got to hope that was the issue at center, redshirt freshman at center with those snapping issues too.
And then injury wise, what are we looking at come kickoff?
Yeah, the big ones for me, I'm going to keep my eye on Caden Dennis. He was injured perhaps against Northern Arizona, or was it Drake? In one of the two early home games, he was banged up, didn't play at Boise State. He was practicing this week. I expect to see him play. Isaiah Smith was practicing. I expect to see him play. Brady Stevens looked like he was limping around a little bit last week, this week. Be very curious if there's a backup kicking situation going on there. Defensively, I think they're mostly healthy. They lost Casey Schultz early in the year. I think that's long term. Other than that, they've been fairly healthy. So the two offensive players and the kicker will be on my mind in pregame. And then for South Dakota State, there's a couple big names, Adam Bach defensively, and then one of the Jockey boys who I never have figured out which one is which. One of them's out and one of them is expected back. So, and Marcus Preston, former UND wide receiver, has missed time, transferred to South Dakota State in the offseason. He might be ready to play. We'll see.
All right. Well, it'll be 2 p.m. kickoff in Brookings, obviously, and you can
not 10 a.m.
Exactly. I think, I think you're the only one that probably has a problem.
Oh yeah, well that was it was really 11 a.m. back in Grand Forks.
Yeah, it'll be Midco. It'll be 96.1 FM, and it'll be ESPN Plus as well. But you can also follow along with us at the Herald, GrandForksHerald.com. You can follow along with the live box score with Tom. Also on social media, you can follow Tom as well. Any predictions for final score?
Well, I kind of half dropped it earlier. I think a 28-14 makes sense to me. I think the official spread might push 17, which sounds like a lot, but is 34-17 really that crazy to think? I guess I'm going 28-14. Back in when it was Bubba Schweigert versus John Stiegelmeier, which it isn't anymore, they were a little more conservative, kept scores down a little bit. Maybe it's a new Jacks era. We'll find out. But I'm going 28-14, South Dakota State.
All right. Well, we'll see how that goes, and we'll talk to you a little bit later then, Tom. Thanks.
Sounds good. We'll see you then.